Searching for a romantic summer getaway? Escape with Rich Girl Summer, the new Audible original from Lily Chu. The exquisitely talented Philippa Soo, returning to narrate her 5th Lily Chu title. This time, Philippa is joined by her real-life husband, Stephen Pasquale. Set in Toronto's wealthy cottage country, aka the Hamptons of Canada, Rich Girl Summer follows the story of Valerie, a down-on-her-luck event planner posing as a socialite's long-lost daughter, while piecing together the secrets surrounding a mysterious family and falling deeper and deeper in love with the impossibly hard-to-read and infuriatingly handsome family assistant, Nico. Caught between pretending to belong and unexpectedly finding where she truly fits in, Valerie learns her summer is about to get far more complicated than she ever planned. She's in over her head and head over heels. Listen to Rich Girl Summer now on Audible. Go to audible.com/richgirlsummer.
You buy a pair of socks, that's 2 socks. You buy a pair of Bombas socks, that's 4 socks. Because one purchased is one donated. Socks are the #1 most requested clothing item in homeless shelters. So when you buy a pair of super comfortable Bombas socks, you're also donating a pair. Bombas customers have powered over 150 million donations. So Bombas would like to thank you 150 million times. But we only have like 30 seconds. Go to bombas.com and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO at checkout.
Today on The James Altucher Show.
I think the right relationship should make you more independent, a total reversal of how I used to think of a relationship. And I reference a little bit of research in that as well. I kind of refuse myself to be like, wow, this is like, I want to like lock this woman down and, you know, get the government involved and marry her. Deep down, I was like, I don't know if I'm a relationship guy. We are adopting expectations, that is assumptions about how fast the relationship should go. And it's really not true to us. And there's no right way and there's no right pace of a relationship. And, you know, a lot of people nowadays talk a lot about, for women, it's the right person. And for men, it's the right time. My whole mindset is that when you're dating, don't date to be liked, date to be seen.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is The James Altucher Show.
I've got Case Kenny with me, the author of the new book, The Opposite of Settling, and also the host of the podcast, New Mindset, Who Dis. Case, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, James. Appreciate it.
Now, Case, I've been in the dating world. I've been in the married world probably more times than I would like to admit for both. And the opposite of settling, maybe I want to hear you describe what you mean by settling, but also I want to hear your story. I want to hear like when you felt you might have settled and then started to work on the ideas that became so poignant in your book.
For sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I wrote the book because a couple years ago, I sat down and I was thinking about like some of my younger self resistance to commitment and relationships, right? So like classic mid-20 something guy, avoidant mentality. And I was thinking back about like why maybe I was that way and younger men are that way as well.
But I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I ask, what way were you? What does it mean? Like, give me, like, what was a specific example?
not bought into the concept of a relationship, right? So like
you would be dating someone and what would happen?
And then, you know, classic male avoidant of letting it die because you didn't see the purpose of a long-term commitment and marriage and, you know, and that in its totality. I didn't see the point of a relationship because it was always couched in the context of the phrasing, and I almost called the book this, but the phrasing was settle down, right? When are you going to settle down? When I want to settle down, but I don't know. I always thought it was curious phrasing, right? This idea, it's got the word settle in it for one. It also has the word down in it for two. And I always just thought that was curious because my whole world in mindfulness is that of emotional vocabulary and language and how we speak about ourselves in life. And I was like, man, maybe it had a little bit to do with that my anticipation of a relationship was this lessening, was this, well, you're going to lose your independence, you're going to lose some of your spark and some of your passion and your ability to be spontaneous, and it's down. And I was like, maybe that's why when I was younger, I didn't have a great sales pitch for what love and a committed relationship had to offer. So I wrote it through that lens. And now I'm 37 now, and I have found my person. And even chapter 2 of the book, I believe, is about how I think the right relationship should make you more independent, a total reversal of how I used to think of a relationship. And I reference a little bit of research in that as well. But yeah, that is kind of my evolution, and it started with that phrasing.
But was there like someone who you were dating who, in retrospect, you think maybe you could have had more of a relationship with, but you were so avoidant that you pushed that person away? Like, what's a time when you actually, what did you do that ended a relationship that maybe, and what were the qualities of that person and so on? Like, give me a real example.
Yeah, I mean, that's a doozy of a question, right? And in hindsight, probably the answer is probably yes. Like, I probably could have made a certain relationship work better and go to the next level. I mean,
like, what was it about that person? Like, that makes you think that now? What was the situation?
I mean, I can think back to like someone I dated in my 20s, you know, attractive, all the qualities that I was looking for, I suppose, you know, ambitious, funny, easy to get along with. I think, you know, at the time, you know, I did, because I wasn't so bought into it, I just kind of didn't pursue the next step. I kind of refused myself to be like, wow, this is like, I want to like lock this woman down and, you know, get the government involved and marry her. I think that was my mentality. So unfortunately, it was like that passive letting go.
Like what? Like you didn't respond to some messages, or you said you're not ready to settle down,
I think to be honest, it was like, yeah, I mean, I probably should have pushed, like, I want to meet your family and I want you to meet my family. And I didn't do those things because I knew, you know, I deep down was like, I don't know if I'm a relationship guy. So like, it was the obvious things that you would do, right? You get to know their family, you do vacations, you talk about the future. I think that was like something you look back in retrospect, and I kind of cringe a little bit at not being the guy to talk about the future and, you know, non-committal in the little ways, as well as the larger ways. And then, of course, yeah, just being kind of passive and letting that go. So I look back at that younger version of myself and like, man, that is, you know, a little embarrassing and immature to let a relationship die in that sense, instead of either communicating about it. But, you know, I'm so lucky now to, of course, have found my person, and, you know, I dedicated this book to her, and then to, you know, be able to have this Emily.
Yeah. How did you meet her?
I met her in Chicago right before we moved to Miami. We started dating in Chicago, and then we dated for about a year. And then we road tripped down to Miami together, and then moved in, and have been down there for about 3 years.
How did you guys meet?
We met on a dating app. So very modern age love story.
And then when you met her, was it like, oh, I like this person more than anybody I ever dated before? Or
actually, I would say it was a pretty slow burn, which I talk a lot in the book about the way that a lot of the times we are adopting expectations, that is, assumptions about how fast the relationship should go, and it's really not true to us. And there's no right way, and there's no right pace of a relationship. For us, I think I'm really glad that it was a slow burn, and that it allowed for us, of course, to get to know each other. But I think it also opened my perspective as far as, oh, well, you know, this is an amazing woman, and we have all the compatibility, and we have the creative compatibility and the ambition compatibility and the humor compatibility, and all the different ways that I look at a relationship. But I think doing it slowly over time was like, wow, you know, I could let this person in more and more. And this isn't a threat to my identity. This isn't a threat to what I want to get out of life. You know, very much so felt through her, I felt encouraged to be more independent. Both like literally like, Case, you should do this thing and that thing, but like on a soulful level, maintaining of that you know, kind of identity. I think the slowness there was really helpful. And then we moved down to Miami and moved in together. And then you learn a whole lot about a person by, you know, living with them. And I think with her, it was special. And, you know, a lot of people nowadays talk a lot about how for men, it's all about timing, right? For women, it's the right person, and for men, it's the right time. I don't know if you've heard that before. And it's what was it, in Sex and the City or something? The taxi light theory or something, that when a man puts the cab light on, that he's looking for someone, you know, the next person who comes along, that's the person. I don't think that's necessarily true to me, because that kind of cheapens the compatibility. But I think timing is important. I think also at the same stage have really thrown myself into my work for years and years and years, and really consider myself to be much more mindful and self-aware and emotionally self-sufficient along the way. And I think all those things combined just led to that, this is not the sales pitch I thought of a relationship. This is, and I call it in the book, settling up. That is with her getting more out of life, being more ambitious together, having this, I refer to them in the books through the Gottman Institute of bids for connection, the way that we connect with each other on a level that I don't think I had in the past, and just seeing it as this energizing, uplifting thing in my life versus this expectation that it would pull me down. So just like a big mindset shift.
Yeah, like given that you work so hard and you're obviously you're very successful on social media and as a writer and so on, did you think that this was going to distract you from your work or give you fewer things to say about relationships because now you're going to be in like one relationship?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, because I wrote a book in 2020 called Single is Your Superpower, which I would say is, still very true. And I evangelize very much so for figuring out yourself and your life and your spark through your single years. But I think I identified very much through that and, really came into myself as a single dude. But yeah, I think certainly that was a fear. And then, on the ambition side, like I want to be a prolific author and entrepreneur and doing all these things and to travel. And it was just a bad assumption, frankly. I think that's why I wrote the book. And that's why I wrote about flipping the framing of what is the sales pitch for love that doesn't include settling, doesn't include settling down. So I'm glad I was patient in the pursuit of that. And now I can truly say that, I practice what I preach and, I'm lucky to have found this person.
You mentioned in the book that there's some research that suggests that men in general perceive themselves as not as likable as they are. I forgot the exact phrasing you used, but that they walk into a room and they think basically everyone hates them when actually that's not true. That's an extreme version of it, but that does make someone feel like, oh, I better lock this down because if everyone doesn't like me and this person seems to like me, but I better lock it down before they realize the truth.
Yeah, right. I mean, you think about it. So it's called the liking gap, and it was men and women alike, but it was basically just the overarching statistical research that says that we tend to underestimate how much people like us after we have a conversation, and in turn, the liking gap, it causes us to do all kinds of behaviors. One, namely having a scarcity mindset that if someone finally likes us, then we need to jump on board, or two, that it leads us to self-censor, to be overly critical of ourselves, when in fact the reality is people are more receptive to us than we assume. And, a lot of this is rather logical in that the reason that we maybe think that people don't like us is because we're in performance mode and we're judging ourselves versus being present in the conversation. The researchers suggested that the reason that, we don't take time after a conversation to like get feedback, which would be a little strange, right? For me to be like, how do you think our conversation just went? Like a post-conversation survey. But it's like a combination of those things that really just lead us in this unfair self-judgment loop. So I like that as context for the fact that overwhelmingly so, statistically, you are more likable than you think. So just take a deep breath. Perhaps we don't need this scarcity, chase mindset. And I like it, just a little wind in your proverbial sail.
I mean, I think this is extremely valuable advice because if you go into every situation thinking you're not going to be as likable as you are, you're going to go into sales mode. Like you said, you're going to be in performance mode where, what can I do to get this person to like me? As opposed to, and you mentioned this in another part of the book, as opposed to sitting there saying, actually wondering for yourself, how does this person make me feel? Do I feel good? Do I feel bad? Like actually being present to determine if this is a good situation for you or not. You get stuck in this performance mode, and where victory is the girl or guy likes you,
right,
and failure, as you point out, is it ending or they don't like you,
right,
when that might not be failure at all. That might be a success. You just have to, it's like you say, you have to have a new mindset for dealing with this. Like just being aware of that one thing, I think would have helped me a lot when I was younger.
Yeah, me too. I mean, my whole mindset is that when you're dating, don't date to be liked, date to be seen. And that's a bit of a self-helpism, right? But like the whole idea is, yes, of course you want to be liked. Who wouldn't want to be liked? But having that be your motivation is very distracting. For one, especially if you don't think you're likable, then everything we just referenced. But for two, people can trick you into thinking that they like you and they get to say the right things. Date to be seen is the whole thesis of the idea, which is the opposite of settling, is you date someone who amplifies who you are. They make you more of yourself, which if you talk to people nowadays, especially women lose themselves in relationships. Men deceive others in relationships, just on the hyperbole spectrum there. So just to be able to be comfortable in who you are and to use that as the lens for whether someone is compatible or not. I also talk in the book about the research that also supports that non-conforming traits are overwhelmingly attractive. That is the thing that we think makes us unlikable or too loud or too quiet or too intense or too whatever. That is the thing that draws people to us. And of course, it might repel the wrong people, but it will bring in the right people. People, according to the research, likely are drawn to non-conforming traits. So you put that together with you're more likable than you think you are. Maybe it gives you a firmer foundation off of which to launch and say, I'm dating to be seen. I would like to be liked, but it's part of the process to not be liked because I'm dating to be seen.
Well, can you tell me, like, what's a specific example or a story of a non-conforming trait? Like, what were your non-conforming traits when you met Emily, and what were hers?
What am I not? I mean, I think, I don't know. I mean, I share my feelings for a living. It's a somewhat non-traditional career path. It doesn't have the greatest financial security. So it's a little out there creatively as far as what I do, especially in a world where men very much identify by what they do. And, I worked in advertising technology sales for 12 years before doing this. So it was a big switch. I was like throwing that away. So I'd say that. I think a younger me was like very introverted as well. So like non-conforming go both ways, right? It's like you're too loud or you're too quiet or you're too this or you're too that or you're too traditional or too non-traditional, whatever it may be. So I think, yeah, for me, probably those two certainly at least gave me a little bit of insecurity sometimes. And now, of course, I'm proud of what I do. And I joke that I share my feelings for a living. Like I've stepped into the description.
Take a quick break. If you like this episode, I'd really, really appreciate it. It means so much to me. Please share it with your friends and subscribe to the podcast. Email me at altucher@gmail.com and tell me why you subscribed. Thanks.
Yes, Mr. Gecko, you're a huge inspiration to us all. But who was your muse?
Oh, my dear old Nan. She imparted many wise words to me. She would say, never let the fame get to your head, always remember who you are, and let people get more than just savings with Geico's fast and friendly claim support. I lived up to her advice, and now anyone can file a claim anywhere and anytime. I miss her so much.
Did she go somewhere?
Yeah, extended quilting trip.
Oh.
Get more than just savings. Get more with Geico.
When you say you were introverted, like, what does that mean?
I mean, and there's nothing wrong with being introverted, to be clear.
Yeah.
I think, it's funny. I would say, to answer your question, I would say I would rather listen than speak in the past. And now I can't stop yapping. I love to talk. I love to express my opinion. And I owe that to a couple of things. I think mostly just coming into myself and understanding my creative purpose in life. But then also, I think I worked in sales for a long time, to my point, and I think it really helped me step into confidence. And so I always recommend, everyone try to do sales at some point, wait tables at some point. It teaches you a lot about yourself. I think I just needed those contexts to really pull it out of me. And that was the whole reason I started the podcast, because in 2018, I was doing really well in my career, but I didn't feel like I knew myself that well. Like I feel like I knew what to do in my career. I knew I got promoted to regional vice president, and that's fantastic. But I didn't have a worldview. I didn't have a sense of self. I didn't have a sense as a partner, as a brother, as a son. And I wanted that. And that's why I sat down and started.
I think that's a hard thing to know about yourself.
Well, it was somewhat simple for me, I suppose, because somewhat introverted, but very type A. And I just felt like I would go to work and I felt so clear. Like, oh, this is the thing. This is what I say. And I just had the blueprint. But then the second I left work, I was just like a shell of a man. And I don't know the best way to describe it, but it just felt like I would have clarity and then no clarity. And I would have confidence and then no confidence. And of course, it's great to have your job put a little wind in your sail, but I didn't like that fact that I felt like I was a one person here and another person there, a mask here, no mask there. I just didn't like that fact. And I was like, I want to be the same person all the time. And that was kind of the motivation for the
But maybe after work, you were just like tired. And so like you were talking all day, you were selling all day, and then you just needed a break from that at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., whenever you got off work.
No, it was more just like anytime like I had to formulate an opinion on what is right in life or what do I think about a political event or something. I would look around at other people's examples. And I think that was just like, well, that's crazy. Because at work, I people come to me. I'm the guy who sets the tone and the leader, and we do the things. And I just didn't like that fact that everywhere else I was looking around for other people's examples. I was doing a lot of borrowing and just overall rushing. And yeah, when I was like single, I was like, oh, this is what a single guy does. You need to go out and buy bottle service and do this and have a roster. And at a certain point, I was like, well, this just doesn't seem like it's coming from me. And I was frustrated by that fact. And voila, podcast.
So you felt like maybe you were like what, on a date, would you basically say what you thought the other person wanted to hear versus you saying what you really felt?
I wouldn't consider, probably a little bit of that, just to, try to create the best date possible. But it was more just like of not having an intention, which is like the worst thing, like when women are dating men who don't know what they want, right? And men who date women who don't know what they want. I think it was more of that mentality. Like if you really tried to crack the egg open, it would be more a matter of, case like, what are you looking for? And I would say, I'm looking just for someone great and to see where things go. Nothing like manipulative or like having game. I definitely did not have game. So more.
I think you probably had a little more game than you admit, but I
appreciate that.
I don't know.
I don't think so, but nowadays I've got more of a way with words than I did in the past. But yeah, it's just that feeling of not knowing myself and that translating into other areas of life that frustrated me. And I think it led me here, which I'm grateful for.
And, you talk about this thing, which when you're in a relationship, you talk about this thing called peak end rule, where, it seems like it's the worst case scenario for something to end. And you can't even get it out of your head that, no, this might be the right thing for me, because you think you've somehow convinced yourself this is the best situation I've ever had. There's no one going to be like this. Plus, everybody hates being rejected. So you really fight hard for a relationship not to end in general. I'm not saying this about you or me or just in general. And how do you avoid that? How do you say, hey, this is not working out for me. I shouldn't try anymore? Because a lot of people say, oh, there's going to be ups and downs in everything. How do you know when the downs are too much?
Well, for sure. I mean, in reference to the peak end rule, I think, again, it's helpful observations to have with us, right? Similarly to you're more likable than you think you are. The peak end rule would say, hey, for the most part, your memories are distorting your current clarity. The peak end rule says that we remember experiences by their emotional peaks and their endings. And so we tend to choose the one that kind of hurts us more. Like we'll remember the middle, which was amazing, and it's this emotional peak. But then we had lost that, and we're like, oh my gosh, I lost everything. I'm incapable of finding that again, and we beat ourselves up. Or we remember the end where maybe it was this dumpster fire of a relationship ending, and we're like, oh my gosh, like I can't imagine ever dating again. That was so bad. Either way, it in a negative sense, the peak end rule leads to all these limiting beliefs in the present. I think, and I talk a little bit about it in the book, but it's like the idea in life, and blanking on the philosopher who said it, he says that cheerfulness is the ultimate sign of wisdom, in that to be successful in any area of life, as I'm sure you'd agree, there has to be some mentality of being able to appreciate good memories in the past without throwing them all away because it didn't lead to exactly what you wanted, right? So to be able to appreciate the second date that was amazing and you have a good memory, even if the relationship ended, to not do what so many people do nowadays, which is just throw out the complete chapter because it didn't end in a marriage, for instance. I think if you want to have a more optimistic mindset around dating, which is the whole point of the book and my ethos, is the ability to still appreciate a good memory with a temporary person, and to not do what we tend to do, which is to villainize that person, villainize that chapter, to be able to say, I appreciate that emotional peak. Even though the ending was bad, I still appreciate it. Or to be able to look at the end and say, yes, that ended in a poor way, but I can still appreciate the concept of what happened in the relationship without burning it all to the ground. So I think it is an important foundation of being mindful in your life, such that you're not just throwing away chapter after chapter, because of course it can take a while to find your person. I find that to be helpful, especially in light of like nostalgia is a weird emotion and it can lead to all kinds of weird conclusions. So just stay alert of the fact of how our brain tends to use memories to hurt us more sometimes, to ourselves, subconsciously or overtly. I think it's a helpful anecdote.
Well, that's interesting though. Like maybe, and look, I think this is really good advice. Like I look back on the major relationships in my life, and obviously when it ends afterwards, you kind of think it was all bad, like you say. Yeah. And it's hard to even remember the good moments. But I think it is good to, particularly if relationships are most of your life, it's good to think that the majority of your life wasn't bad and you find these good moments. But maybe that's the brain's way of protecting yourself. So like you say to yourself, okay, it's good that this ended. I'm going to move forward because the whole thing was bad. Maybe that's your brain in a simplistic way protecting you.
Probably, right? I mean, that's what the brain does.
Not that the brain
right?
is so smart. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, I talk a lot about the way that I have learned that we process hurtful experiences, trauma, and everything in between. Like the brain is really good at retaining information and saying, hey, don't do that because that was hurtful. Don't do that because, don't pick up the pan because it's hot, right? Don't be vulnerable because you got hurt. It's survival. It's keeping us safe, allegedly. But, I think inevitably, if you internalize some of those more extreme conclusions of life, especially when it comes to like your worth as a result, you end up in these, and a therapist would have a field day with it, you end up in these all too familiar circumstances where you're seeking out the same pattern of behavior, where you're trying to earn the love is pulled back and you pull forward, and it's this give and take until you get it and then you lose it again. And then you find yourself in that same circumstance again. It's like, why would I continue to do this? Well, subconsciously, we're seeking it out. So yeah, I think the brain can be very deceiving. And you have conversations with people all the time. And I'm like, why are you continuing to do this thing? And then at the end of the day, it's like, I don't really know. And sometimes it's the brain leading us in the wrong direction because it's what it knows. So I think there's a lot of room to, at least in my practice, which is like, let's freeze the brain for a minute and let's try to reprocess these things. A lot of my work is around emotional vocabulary and how we speak about these events and using new wording, more optimistic leaning wording, vocabulary, literacy and sentence structure. So yeah, the brain's a fickle thing. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes I think it perhaps reinforces the wrong message.
And so this is all really useful advice for not only when you're in a relationship, but even like you say, when you're on a first date, not feeling like you have to, pretend in order to be liked, for instance. That's the first, that's the piece of advice where people think that they're not as liked as they are, or not having to, kind of really taking a step back and seeing, again, how this person makes you feel, and also kind of highlighting the things that you think make you unique, or as you put it in the book, weird. And I like the word weird as opposed to authentic. Like, I don't really know how to be authentic, but I definitely know that if I just focus on things I like and care about, then that tends to be a little weird for some people.
Yeah. Authentic. I totally agree with you. I think authentic is one of those words where it kind of becomes performative quite quickly, or at least you're thinking about how to be authentic, whereas it's just be weird and passionate. Yeah. I mean, I think I like your comment. I mean, it's like on a first date nowadays, I don't know how tapped in you are with just like internet culture or just like what's going on TikTok and dating, but it seems to be the overwhelming mentality is you show up on a first date and you observe that person. You see what they have to offer. You match their energy. Don't give, match their energy. And then see if they're worthy of what you have. And I am really not a fan of that. I'm a fan, of course, of not giving and giving and giving and letting someone walk over you and being naive. I'm not a big fan, though, of this mentality of I only match energy and passion and realness, because the whole point, like when we do kind of drop a cliche, like, oh, be weird and be honest yourself. It's not just for that, because that sounds like nice, whimsical self-help advice. It's a very practical thing. Like when you show up, I say you should be intentional and honest and say, this is what I'm looking for and this is who I am. And I'm not matching. I'm not doing any of this weird, mysterious stuff. I'm doing that to get clarity as fast as possible. I'm doing that to see if you're on my level as fast as possible. Otherwise, the whole I only match energy, you're just delaying the inevitable when you finally get to see who they are. You're like, oh, well, I just wasted 4 dates on that because I was matching and I was being mysterious. Like the whole effort of dating, of course, is to get someone from maybe to yes or no, not necessarily as fast as possible, but as clear as possible. And I think you accomplish that by showing up as your weirdest self with your intentions, with the best conversation and most honest conversation.
And so when you started having this approach to dating, like, is there an example or a specific case where you met someone and you were just being yourself and they said, look, I'm this political party and blah, blah, blah. And you're and you would say, well, I'm the exact opposite political party. Like, is there a case where just being yourself and it was no harm, no foul, but the date just ended and then that was that?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what happened? Tell me what happened.
I don't remember the exact conversation where it was like clear that, she wasn't into me, but we were having a nice conversation. I remember this very vividly. Actually, this is maybe, I don't know, 20, 30, somewhere in there, 29, 30, 31. And we were on a date and it was actually a second date. And I'm sure I was talking about something I was passionate about or whatever, a light conversation. But I remember like 20 minutes into the date, she was like, I have to go feed my dog. And then just literally left. And I never heard from her again. And I always thought that was very perhaps emblematic of dating nowadays. It goes both ways. Men and women have these frustrating dating experiences. But I was like, wow, okay, I'm clearly not for her. And whether she actually had to feed her dog or not, I don't know. But that was her out. She was like, no, this guy is not for me. Case Kenny is not the right dude for me. Great. I appreciate that, though, because it was immediate clarity.
You can't remember what you were saying? Like, what do you think you were saying? That come on, you must.
Well, I mean, it certainly wasn't anything outrageous. I'm a pretty even keel guy. It was probably something about work or music. I don't know. I wish I had a better memory, but I don't think I was like outrageous or anything. It just clearly wasn't. She wasn't buying what I was selling.
That's a good way to put it. And so okay, a guy or a girl listening to this, they haven't found the right person yet. Maybe they're getting a little older. I think that's when people start thinking, should I, quote unquote, settle down? Which you're right, is a very negative way of putting that. Like there can't be anything good about a relationship that was a result of settling down. So
you said it.
Like, how do you, but if you think to yourself, hey, well, every girl or guy I was pursuing didn't go for me, so I guess I have to go one step lower. Like, that's kind of how the brain is thinking. So how do you not think that way?
Well, I would say two things. I would say one, a little bit of anecdotal evidence. Like over the years of doing the podcast, and especially in the beginning when I was trying to find my footing, a lot of my perspective came from older generations. I would ask older people, 60 plus. I would ask them, and I've done it dozens, if not hundreds of times. I would say, what do you regret? Just to get perspective on life of what older generations regret. And I heard a lot of dating answers. I never heard any person say, I regret being single. All the regrets in love and dating always came from marrying the wrong person, having kids with the wrong person, having kids too soon, staying in the wrong relationship. So take that for what it's worth. I always thought that was interesting perspective when it comes to dating. Yes, I understand that if you are single and you don't want to be single, that is a frustrating reality. But there's also a reality where the much better alternative is being single. So take that for what it's worth. I also think in general, it's like we've gotten lost again to the way we started of the purpose of a relationship. To me, it's what we referenced earlier about making you feel like more of yourself, helping you get more out of life, settle up, not settle down. But the purpose is to help you return to a state of playfulness. Like as adults, we just get so far away from playfulness because things are serious. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. There are a lot of responsibilities. The purpose of a relationship is that playfulness. I genuinely believe that based upon the idea of shared humor being the foundation for relationships, the necessity for emotional connections that go back and forth. But playfulness is the purpose. And I just find a lot of people, when they're in that state and they're getting older and they want to meet their person, which is amazing, they get so serious. And as practical as I could put it, it shows up in dating. right? You show up in a very intense, serious interrogation type way. So if the goal is playfulness, I really think you should approach dating in a playful way as well. Not in a way where you're not intentional, but in a playful way with the way that you carry yourself, the way that you express yourself. I think that mentality, because I can't answer the question directly and say, do this, because I don't know. I got lucky.
Yeah.
But I can't say the mentality around what you're looking for, I think sets the foundation for what you find and what you attract. And I also think in general, I read this super interesting study the other day that basically said, and I'd have to go into the methodology a little bit, but it basically said that who you are when you choose a partner is more important than the partner you choose. The idea being like a full heart creates a full love, that if you're miserable and you find a partner, it's not going to work. If you are happy and fulfilled and you know yourself and you're emotionally self-sufficient, that is what creates a successful relationship. It's not the qualities of the other person, although those are obviously important for compatibility, but it's your individual qualities, your individual metrics of happiness, and their individual qualities, their individual metrics for happiness. That's what makes a relationship work. And if you've skipped that step because you're just so focused on find a partner, I would say go back to some of those things. How can you fill your heart and your cup and just watch that overflow? And that's a little bit ambiguous, but the research supports it. Amidst all the qualities, they surveyed these like 2,500 couples and were looking at shared characteristics of happiness, individual characteristics, to see what caused the relationship to last or what didn't. And it was how those people, their individual emotions dictated the happiness and longevity of the relationship. So that was a lot there, a longer answer, but I think all those things mentality-wise is the direction that'll really help you return to the playfulness and just be more clear about what you're looking for.
And like, how would you describe playfulness? Like, what does it mean to be playful on a date? Like, obviously you're on a date because you want to have fun and you want to like the person and you want to be liked. But what's an example of like a before and after? Someone who wasn't playful and then they become playful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with how you carry yourself. I mean, humor would obviously be the basis mostly for playfulness. And I talk a lot in the book about how playfulness has been studied extensively in relationships. And it's not, humor rather, has been studied. It's not just like, do we laugh at each other's jokes? It's, do we create new shared moments of humor together? Right? So there's a somewhat nuance there of we're creating these moments, right? It's new, it's fresh. I'm adding some spice, you're adding some spice, we're creating this thing. To me, that is playfulness.
What does that mean? Like what does it mean creating a shared moment? Like what's an example of that?
Yeah, I mean, I could, it could be like riffing on something that's funny, but we're each adding something to it and escalating it. So we're each adding a unique aspect of our conversation. Or I don't know, I just think like in my relationship with my girlfriend, we have this, it's a beautiful element of just like observational curiosity and humor, where everywhere we go, it's like, look at that thing or look at that thing. What about this? So we're just creating moments, creating memories, and then there's the humor alongside of it. But I think it's also probably more important, like what it represents. I review a lot of the Gottman Institute in the book, who has some of the longest standing research on what makes relationships work. And they refer to these as bids for connection, right? So how do we actually connect with someone? And there's all many different kinds of ways, right? There's deep conversations. There's, coming up behind your partner and giving them a massage, a physical bid for connection, asking about their day. The biggest one, though, is that humor as a bid for connection. I think we are remiss to realize how much we connect over humor. So I kind of really cherry-picked and pinpointed that one in the book, but I think that is just as a foundation is important. And I think also it's like the foundation for a healthy relationship is always rooted in some element of noticing, right? I'm talking about love is noticing. A partner who always notices and continues to notice and is interested and understands when your emotions shift and when you need something and picks up on that energy, that is the foundation for playfulness and humor and all these things. So I think they all go hand in hand, certainly.
Yeah, no, this is all really great advice. And I really wish I had read your book and listened to your podcast before so many failed dates and relationships that I had basically until I was 50 years old. So, But the humor thing is so important because like I would, just to put myself in the mode to be funny, I would listen to stand-up comedy right before going on a date, just to kind of get those mirror neurons going in my brain. That's how important it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I really do think, I mean, first of all, who doesn't like a funny person? I think it's great. And also it helps loosen you up and gets you into that a state of, does this person see me? So, to me, it's like if I had to circle one thing, I think that's one of the biggest.
Well, Case Kenny, author of the book, The Opposite of Settling. I love that title, by the way, The Opposite of Settling. And also the podcast, New Mindset, Who Dis. I listened to several episodes. By the way, it's good that you have like a short format, and I think that works really well. I think, sometimes, there's the Joe Rogan on the other end with 3-hour podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm probably somewhere in the middle, but I really like the short format. It's kind of easy nuggets to digest.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you could listen to it at 2x speed and listen in like 7 or 8 minutes. So to me, it fits my life. And eventually you don't want to hear someone talk for too much longer. So, hit the points and get out.
I think I talk at 2x speed. So if you listen to me at 2x speed, then it's like 4x speed.
Turbocharged, James. Love it.
Well, Case, thank you so much. The Opposite of Settling. Again, great book, great advice. And this was great advice on this podcast. So I hope people pay attention. And if you have any questions, just ask us on Twitter. What's your Twitter account?
It's Case Kenny.
Case Kenny. Okay. Well, thanks again for coming on the show, and good luck with the book launch.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Just when you thought summer couldn't get any hotter, Pluto TV is turning up the heat with thousands of free movies. Presenting Summer of Cinema. Stream your favorite blockbuster films like Gladiator.
I will have my vengeance.
Good Burger.
This is what I call fast food.
Beverly Hills Cop. The Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. And Julie and Julia.
Bon appetit.
All for free on your favorite devices. Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.
I've got 20 minutes till Run Club meets, and it's time for a quick pre-workout snack. Go Squeeze Active Fruit Blend to the rescue. Made with select B vitamins to help release energy, it's an easy, squeezable pouch made to move with me. The taste, so good. And made with real fruit, even better. Whether I'm hitting the trail or meeting my friends on the court, this is my go-to on-the-go snack. Quick, easy, ready when I am. When it's go time, I go with Go Squeeze Active. Snag yours on your next door run. Search for Go Squeeze on Amazon.